what are jigs? In this video, I'm going to show you how to create jigs and talk about what a jig actually helps you achieve, and we'll take a look at how you would use a jig on the S1 laser here. So first of all, what is a jig? A jig is simply, it's something cut out of wood, out of plastic. There's some material, or it doesn't have to be anything that's very large, but it's just something that helps align the workpiece that you're working on, so that way you can do repeatable cuts or processing to whatever material it may be. So in this case, I'm making a jig for coasters, and this jig is going to allow me to be able to easily, repeatedly engrave on 4 coasters in one batch. And this saves me in setup time. So the benefit here is that I can put this in the bed of the laser. I can place 4 coasters in here. I can have that already set up in the software, and then I can hit go on the laser. It'll engrave 4. And as soon as that finishes, all I have to do is open the lid, take the 4 coasters out, put 4 new coasters in, and engrave again. So very repeatable and easy to make a lot of coasters in bulk. So the next thing is we need to look at how we make this piece, and I'll show you how to do that in the xTool Studio software. Alright, so the first thing that I want to do is go ahead and insert a rectangle, and we're going to make, of course, just a square that is exactly the size of our coaster. And I measured mine, and they're about 3.93 inches, so I'm going to overshoot that just a little bit to give it a little bit of play to make it easy for them to set down inside the jig. So let's do 3.96, and then I'm going to adjust the height. Be sure to unlock it so that way we can adjust the height independently. So 3.96. All right, perfect. So we have the hole that we would cut out for one individual coaster. Now, the important thing about jigs is that these are evenly spaced apart, and it's in a predictable position on the grid. So that way, whenever we load up our jig each time, we know exactly where we're going back to when we place our designs. So we'll talk about that more in a little bit. So now to repeat this exact shape, I could draw another square, another square, another square, 4, 6, or how many. But xTool Studio has a really handy tool for repeating shapes, which is the grid array. So we're going to use the grid array to put these together. Now, right now, this spacing would be great for if we were cutting out multiples of a certain design and that was the finished product. But for here, I do want some more space in between each of these, so that way the jig doesn't just break. So I'm going to add, let's add 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch in between them. And you can do basically whatever distance that you want as far as the spacing, but just keep in mind, you know, how strong is your jig going to be. And also with thinner pieces, it's going to be more prone to warping or twisting. So I'm going to beef mine up and make it 3/4 of an inch. And also at this point, you could make it a row of, 2x3 or 3x3, or how many ever squares that you want to put that will fit in the workspace. So I'm just doing a 4x4 because I typically make 4 coasters at a time. So let's click done. And now this has created a group on the workbed. And what I'm going to do is go and ungroup these so that way I can work again on them as individual shapes. I next want to add like a little finger hole to be able to reach in and pull up each of the coasters. So to create that, I'm just going to add a circle, and not really a circle, but kind of more an ellipse, something kind of like that. And let's get it centered up on that line. And then I'm going to copy and paste. And let's just add that to each of our squares around. And notice the red lines, these are just alignment aids. It's helping me get everything aligned with the shape, the other shapes on the canvas. So that looks good. I've got all of them around the board. Let's now take and do a little combination here, so that way this would be all one shape. So right now as it is, this would get cut out and then this would get cut out, which would technically be okay, but that's just more time with the laser cutting through here that I really don't want. So I'm going to select the square and then hold down Shift and select the ellipse. And then let's go over here and click on the combine tool, and then we're going to unite. And so now that's one continuous shape. Do the same for each of the 4 cutouts. You know, I actually could have done this on the very first step and then use the array tool to copy this throughout. So however you want to do it, there's no wrong way to do this. All right, so now we've got our shape. This is exactly what we would cut out, but I want to make a a fixed outside dimension for it. So I'm going to add another rectangle, and we'll just draw it around our shape here. And you can put in the dimensions that you want. So let's just say that we're going to stick with a 10 by 10 square for this to live inside. Perfect. Okay. So one more thing. I'd like for it to be centered up. So let's just select the 4 cutouts. We're going to group that back together and then just drag it until I get those alignment assisting lines there. And now we're centered up vertically and horizontally. Alternately, you could use this tool and select the outer shape and the inner shape, and then do the vertical and horizontal lining. Either way works. All right, so one more thing that I want to do with these shapes is I'm going to take, and it would work exactly as it is. That's perfectly fine, but just I want to select these cutouts and select the outer, and then I'm going to use the subtract tool. So sometimes whenever the innermost layer of what you're going to cut out is technically beneath or on a lower layer, that will give you that warning. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to arrange and bring this to the front. Now this is on the foremost or upper layer of this canvas. I'll select the outermost square, and then now we'll subtract, and that will work just right. So now you can see this is exactly one full vector. And it's important for us to save this because this is our reference. This is what we're going to use in the future for designing our coasters and whatever design that we put in. So this is what we will cut out on our S1 or whatever laser that you're using. And then we're going to put this together or use this as a jig. One other thing that you might want to do, this one is a square, and you may always remember this, as far as the orientation. But if you want to, you can add some text. Maybe you want to put something like top right. Whoops. I'll scoot over here. There we go. Top right, or you can put whatever you want to. And then I'm going to change that to engrave. All right. And then when we put this in the laser, we're going to use this top corner as the reference point to align using the alignment on the laser itself. So this will help us get started. You could put a mark on here to go by, or you could use this corner. Just something on this is going to help you get everything aligned, so that way you can reliably reuse this jig for multiple batches of coasters. One other thing we need to do is select our material. So I'm going to use just this 1/8 inch basswood plywood, and I think I'm going to actually do 2 layers of it to make this a little bit more rigid and keep it from warping and twisting. I had another jig that I had created, and it actually kind of twisted, and it really didn't affect the jig because I could use the magnetic hold downs to hold it down flat, but I wanted one that would be a little bit more sturdy. So that's what I'm going to do this time. And then now we've got all the presets. You can adjust this if you need to. Of course, we don't want to do score. We want to actually do cut. So glad I caught that just now. All right, so the first thing to do over on your laser, put the material in, and let's get lined up with this the top left corner, and line it up with the red crosshairs. Close up the lid, and then let's go over to the software. And in the software, just again, make sure that the design is matched up with the correct red crosshairs in the top left. And let's go ahead and do a trace, and just to make sure that the material or the design will be in the material and you won't run off one of the edges. It's a real quick process, and just make sure that you don't mess up a whole sheet of material. And then after that, we'll just go ahead and process. All right, now with it finished, let's just take this out. All right, so you can see with everything cut out, this is what remains. And this is our jig. This is what we're going to use to align our coasters. So we'll take these pieces out and we'll set this back in. And what I like to do is just take and align this and place some of these magnetic hold downs just to lock it into place. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, I mentioned that these could curl up and warp. You know, if you wanted to cut out another layer and, you know, glue them together to give it some more rigidity, that would be fine. So with that locked in, the next thing we do is just place our coasters in, and you can see they just fit right down inside, and that keeps them from moving around. And then whenever I get ready with all 4 coasters in there, all I have to do is line up the crosshairs with this top left corner. All right, and then in the software, all I need to do is take and move. In the software, all I need to do is take and move the jig so that it is aligned with the crosshairs in the top left right there, just like that. And now, whatever design I put in each of these coasters will be lined up exactly on the actual coaster, and will engrave. And I can Then, you know, the laser's out of the way. Whenever this finishes, I can just pull this out, put new coasters in, and then come back over, hit process again on the in the software, and it'll do another batch of 4. So that makes it super easy to do and just very efficient.